we are very fortunate tonight to have Kate Ambrosia and Rachel Marchbanks from the VA with us tonight and sharing information that they have on different services. And we know in talking to Kate that there's a lot of information involved here. And for anyone that is joining us tonight, we're not expecting you to remember all of it. We will have the presentation for you afterwards so that you'll be able to have that information at your fingertips. And as we are also recording, as we do with our public education seminars, only audio recording, so that everyone can be comfortable and not identifiable. That's important to us. So I would like to let people who may be joining us know that we will be closed over the 4th of July holiday. That is one of the dates that we all take off and take a breath around here, and we do celebrate all the our country, and it is a time when we think more about veterans. So with that lead in, I am going to introduce, like I said, both Kate Ambrosia and Rachel Marchbanks, and I would like you ladies, if you would please, to introduce yourselves to us and tell us what your roles are there, and what we'll be hearing about tonight.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Robin. If Anne and Mary, you do have a moment, if you have a pen or paper, you're also welcome to do that, but we will make sure you get a lot of this information. I am Kate Ambrosia. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been with the VA now 8 years. I started as a therapist doing individual, couples, and family work, and I've kind of moved to different positions. I'm now what's called the local recovery coordinator. And so it is my role now to kind of make sure a lot of recovery principles are being represented in all of the programs at the VA. I also get to do a lot of community outreach, which kind of brings me here tonight. And I am beyond happy to network with NAMI. As you know, they're pretty phenomenal in how they represent the recovery model. So I'm very glad to be here. I myself have my own recovery story, which gives me even more understanding and appreciation for quality programs, treatment, community, and connection. We all know we don't get very far when we feel alone. And so it's been a big honor for me to get the good care, and then also now to give a lot of education on how to get there. Similar to how NAMI operates on that peer-to-peer and family-to-family connection, very lucky that the VA has taken that on as well with what we call peer support program, and we have peer support specialists. What makes it a little different than another peer program at the VA is that every peer specialist that we have employed is a veteran. So that way their story and connection really is most feasible when it's the veterans and their families that we work with. So I'm very lucky that I get to work with a lot of the peer support specialists. So I was able to recruit Miss Rachel Marchbanks to join us tonight. So she'll be my co-presenter. She'll actually be able to share with you a little bit on her story and again how the VA has been part of her journey. And then we'll jump into the PowerPoint that, isn't as fun, but it will be good to give you that logistical information on what the VA does and how to get services. And so I will pass it on to Rachel, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. And thank everybody for being here. This is, as always, an honor for me when I can speak in any space. Number one, just to share my own personal story, and but definitely do it in such a way that it honors veterans and hopefully educates the people that are in the audience. So I really do appreciate that. My name is Rachel Marchbanks. I am what they call an Army brat. My father was in the military back at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and he retired. We remained there at Fort Sill. When I turned 20, I joined the military myself, did 20 years myself, and retired back in 2008 from Fort Sill as well. One of the things that really was a challenge for me was my actual transition from the military into the civilian world. Number one, I lost the connection and support that is, just readily available at times, and my camaraderie with the service members that I served within the military. And so while I was in the military, I also I worked in the hospital, but I was a respiratory therapist. And in that particular space for me, I did not have a lot of interaction at all really with mental health. They were actually outside of the main hospital, so they're kind of outlying building, and we just really didn't have any interaction with them. However, when life began to hit me and things began to shift, of course, I had to reach out and get mental health services myself. And at that time, I'll be transparent with you all and let you know it was incredibly difficult to do. I work in the hospital. These are my peers. Some of these people I stand in formation with. Some of these people, meaning fellow soldiers and fellow veterans, I work hand in hand with, and it was difficult having what I considered my business, if you will, out in the street. And so, but luckily for me, I had a supervisor that encouraged me to take advantage of some of the services that were there. Back in, I want to say it was around 2006, I remember being in some training, and it was for PTSD and mild traumatic brain injury. And it was really centered around the veterans that were returning back from combat. And Fort Sill, if you didn't know, is the home of field artillery. So there are a lot of rotations going out, a lot of families being affected, and soldiers going downrange and things happening. So being there in the hospital, we had this particular training. And I remember keenly being in the training and watching the little vignettes that were in the class. I remember someone went to a softball game and the car backfired and he hit the ground, and someone else was I want to say at a restaurant, and he had to have his back to the wall because he's scanned in the room. So these things were happening in these vignettes. But one particular scenario was a veteran put his children to sleep, but he got back up in the middle of the night to check the locks. And he went around his house checking the locks and checking the windows to make sure his perimeter was secure. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that I do exactly what these veterans were displaying on the screen. However, I had not been to combat. And so I struggled with connecting those dots. Like, I know I do these things, but I haven't been to combat. What's going on here? And for me, that really was the beginning of my true recovery story, the way I consider it, because I began to get treatment at that point, mental health treatment. And then, of course, once I retired, I began to get some services from the VA as the veteran. One of the things that I'm very grateful for is when I retired, I began to work in a social work services outreach program on base. And what that allowed me to do is just that, go out and meet the soldiers, meet the commanders, meet the family members on base and in the community. And I wanted to learn more about what was going on, what I perceived to be going on in the community from a mental health space. And lo and behold, there was a NAMI family to family course. So I quickly signed up for that. And in that space, my eyes were opened to some of the challenges, the many challenges that our families were facing, not just families of veterans, just community families. I really was naive in that space because I was an active duty service member. So if I need to go to the doctor, I go to the doctor. If I need to see a psychiatrist, I get an appointment for a psychiatrist. But it's not so necessarily in our local communities. And that was an eye-opener for me. And that also was a time where I really started considering peer support. And in that space, I was able to go to the DBSA peer support program, certified peer support program. And from there, I applied here, and now I am a certified peer support specialist for the VA down here at Tennessee Valley in Murfreesboro. And I'll tell you, this is the most, by far, rewarding job that I've ever had. And I do not even consider it my job. It's just what I love to do and I get to do because I and my fellow peer supports here, we get to come alongside veterans, do our best to meet them where they are and assist them in whatever way that we can. As Miss Katie was saying earlier, we are all veterans, and to be a peer support specialist in the VA, number one, you have to be a veteran, but also we have our own, I like to say, challenges, if you will, in the behavioral health realm, whether it's when we were on active duty, as we transitioned, whether we retired or just transition out of the military. For me, in certain spaces, even though I shared earlier that I had not been to combat, I have been able to connect with veterans who have had extensive combat histories, whether it's in recent conflicts and or in Vietnam. And it is powerful to be able to be in that space, to connect with someone and to hopefully decrease any stigmas that are surrounding our service, whether it's personal stigma or the things that we might encounter in the community, just to be able to hold space for someone to share and be able to lift them up and be a source of hope for anyone, but definitely for a veteran. It's powerful. I'm very, very grateful that I have that opportunity. In spaces, and please feel free to ask questions if you have questions, but in spaces such as this, one of the things that we get to do as peer support specialists is share our own recovery story. And this is, obviously part of mine. I've learned that having that veteran connection, just being in a space where sometimes you don't have to say a thing. You're just in the room and you feel perhaps like I'm with my battles, I'm with my buddy. So I'm in a space where if I want to speak, it's a safe space to speak or a protected space to speak. And if I don't, it's okay. It's okay. And so to have that and to be able to be a part of that as a peer specialist here is the VA for veterans, male, female, all different branches, all different services, all different eras. It is tremendous for me. And one of the other thing I'd like to plug, I forgot because it's very important to me because it's NAMI centered, is when I came here from Oklahoma about 4 years ago, it was in a very challenging time for me from a mental health standpoint. And so I was coming here to start working on the inpatient psych ward, and there was a delay in my service. So I had like a 4-month window of being in a new place, hadn't started my new job. I don't know anyone. The first thing I did, or maybe the second, is locate a local NAMI support group. And there was a group of individuals, and we met here in Murfreesboro, and for months, they were my link almost to sobriety and sanity. I'll be honest with you. And in that space as well, again, learning who lives in my community, what experiences we were having in the community, because these were not particularly veterans. And so I got to, be able to connect with them and learn about what's going on here and find out the different resources that are available here in our local community and also up in Nashville. So I definitely have to share that because they were a lifeline as far as just who walks in the door. They were a lifeline. And I remember the gentleman that led the group. He just was so welcoming to me, I felt. And again, being here alone by myself, it was.
Rachel, who do you remember who it was that led the group?
I do not. And
I know he's
not there. I know he's not there anymore because he was looking for someone to take over the group.
It might have been Ed Matee if it was an older gentleman.
I really don't remember. I
Yeah.
remember him though. I remember the group, and I just really,
Well,
really
and it was
appreciated them.
meaningful, and that's all that
Oh,
counts.
definitely, definitely. And so, but from there, you know, like I said, I began my job here at Tennessee Valley. I worked on the inpatient psychiatric ward, which was another wonderful for me experience to be able to really come alongside veterans who are in that situation and just let them know I'm a peer, I'm with you. It's just, you know, whatever was going on in my life on any particular day, I wasn't the patient, I was now the peer. So to be able to just come along, even in that space, and provide services and provide some semblance of hope to the individuals that were up there was tremendous for me, and I'm very grateful for that. But now I work in the primary care clinics. I work in PACT. So one of the things that myself and my battle buddy, his name is Melvin Gatewood, wonderful, wonderful gentleman and peer. One of the things that we get to do is we get to reach out to veterans, some who are new to VA healthcare. That, you know, this is their first time in the door. So we get to, again, meet them where they are, come alongside them, encourage them if the mental health realm is where they want to pursue in their lives. We get the resources, get them connected, and help them get the services they need. And if it's not at that time, we still provide a bridge and a source of support for them, even in that space. As far as working here in primary care, because it is, you know, a clinical space, it is pretty much a short-term space. I want to say our clinicians in the primary care clinic see the veterans like 6 times. So sometimes, you know, as patients and veterans, we and our care team choose to go on to a longer course of care. And so maybe they'll go on to BHIP and or, you know, possibly the PTSD clinic or the substance abuse or whatever that, you know, they decide with their care team. We have the ability to be in that space as well and assist them through that as well. I'll say here on this particular call and in this space that for me, the NAMI support group that when I first got here, and when I had my initial primary care appointment, it was here at Tennessee Valley in Murfreesboro. Didn't know anybody. I'm going into a primary care appointment. I'm in a little bit of a challenging situation. And in that space, a peer support specialist came in and spoke to me and said pretty much, hey, Battle, I got you. He pretty much said, I got you. Here's my card. I'll be right here. Do you need some assistance? Of course, I did at that time, went and spoke with the clinician. From there, it's just my story sharing with you all. I went on to BHIP, so some longer care, and then decided to actually go into PTSD treatment here at the PTSD clinic up on Glen. And so for me, my experiences in this local hospital and the local mental health services that are available to veterans was life-sustaining for me, definitely supportive for me, and it helps me as a peer when I'm working with veterans to say, I really do understand. Yeah. I really do understand some of the challenges. I really do understand some of the things that you're sharing with me, and perhaps kudos and concerns that they may have, because I get my care here as well. So, and I personally have no problem doing that. And so to be able to break down any stigmas that I can. I know my direct supervisor calls us professional stigma shredders, so peer support specialists, and that's definitely daily what we try to do. But you know, whether it's a mental health space, whether it's a whole health space, whether it's encouraging them, or really as meeting veterans to go to their appointments that they have. I've met some people that needed surgery and didn't have local family. I've gone up and met them and went up with them. You know, I can't go in with you, but I'll be here when you come out. You know, things like that, just to show support and show camaraderie and show that we care and that they're important and we see you just as humans is precious to me. And I'm very, very grateful to be in this position. So, you know, I hope that I've shared some things with you from a peer support perspective and from a personal perspective. I love, again, what I do and the other 14, 15 or so peer specialists here at Tennessee Valley, whether we work in the homeless, with the homeless veterans. Some of us work with the veterans that are in the legal system, the justice system. Some of us work, again, in the inpatient, some in the rehab facilities, and of course at the VRC and a host of other spaces. And I like to share with all the veterans that I speak to that wherever veterans are receiving service, somewhere around there's a peer support. And so somewhere, and if there's not, here's my card and we'll definitely get you connected. So, you know, being able to be a great resource for them for VA services as well as local services has been tremendous. So again, I just thank you all for this opportunity just to share a little bit about who I am and as a person, and definitely as a veteran and some of the things that I've gone through, but definitely to also hopefully highlight some of the things that our veterans may be dealing with as well. So I just thank you once again for this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel. And we're NAMI, so we do believe in the power of the peer. And I just think you said it, you shared it. And one of the important things you said was, I see you.
Yeah.
And that, people think that is so small. That is so big. That is so big. And it sounds like you got seen at a time when you needed it too.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. So Mary Ann and welcome Carolyn. Do any of you have any questions or comments for Rachel?
No, I think she's done a wonderful job, and I think that she's a great leader. And I'm also a coach, but I like to intervene with you guys. I'm here in Cookville, and I love intervening with you guys. Okay.
Awesome.
And matter of fact, you guys actually got a couple of mine from Cookville a year ago because the situation's down here. But there's several of them here that still cross my path, and they say that they are making me earn my stripes. And I am not military,
but you're getting stripes.
I have a lot of fun, and because I have a lot of fun, they get to share a lot of things with me. So I feel like I get to walk y'all's shoes, and sometimes I like to just sit y'all's boots to the side so y'all can just pick up and just move on and help us learn from y'all as well as we can inspire y'all any way we can. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you all.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, Ann, go ahead.
I just have a question in terms of what the realm of the peer counselor is. Like, do you go to people's homes and is there a particular, if so, is there a particular event that needs to happen in order to pull in a peer support person?
Kate, you may be able to speak to this to some degree. And I say that because in where I am in the clinic, you know, I'm kind of confined to the clinic.
Yeah.
And at this time, I'm actually still virtual, but and there are veterans, and the young lady that mentioned Cookville, there are veterans who assist these outlying clinics, and they're on the road every day, you know, reaching out to veterans, meeting them, again, different services, whether it's homelessness or healthcare or things like that. So there are some peer supports that is a part of their job description, if you will, and they have that latitude. But right now, because I'm technically still in the hospital, I'm kind of limited to that space. Generally speaking, for me, veteran presents, primary care or some other area in the hospital, and then sometimes usually it's a referral to mental health services in some way, shape, or form, and then from there it trickles down to peer support. It may be different in certain other areas. What I also, one of the things I know is when we do outreach, and I know like Melvin does a ton of outreach, often we make point of contact contacts, if that makes sense, but right then and there, so we have our business cards and things like that, so there may be an inroad there, but we're always going to in some kind of way kind of circle back from a PCP, primary care licensed LIP, somewhere in the circle position, and then from there we'll take it. But I'll be honest with you, there are some veterans for me that are especially some of the older veterans, primarily because when COVID hit, man, isolation, went to the nth degree, so just to get that phone call and, hey, Miss Rachel, you were late, or, and I'd say, hey, yeah, first arm, whatever it is I need to do to kind of connect with them. But just to again, I see you, we see you, we're the VA and we're here, give me a call. And sometimes just connection like that, whether they're getting their care here or not, primary care wise, is one of the spaces that peer support, I hope this, I'm answering your question, yeah, that peer support can kind of fill.
Yeah, no, you did great. And yes, and it just depends on the program that peer support is with. And, if they're on the inpatient unit, then that's their, where they're going to be at all the time. If they're in the homeless program, and there is that option for home visits, it just depends on the program. But you answered that great, Rachel. And I think you all can see why I had Rachel go first. She's a wonderful speaker. Been very lucky to hear her. And you're just you're meant for this, Rachel. So very glad that you were able to start us out. Any other questions?
Ask
Anybody else? Go ahead, Carolyn.
This is for Rachel. I have been trying to get into y'all's passionate program from Cookville, and I have had a roadblock because of the virus. They don't get the fingerprint and take all of our information in Cookville any longer. I have to, get my way down to Murfreesboro, and all it is just calling you guys, inspirating you guys, making you guys laugh. You probably know the program because of where you're at. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm in a roadblock, Rachel. Can you give back down here to Cookville?
And so
I'll do my best to help you, Miss Carolyn. I'll do my best to help you.
Yeah. So Carolyn,
on the phone and give them a hard time.
so just if you don't have her information, Carolyn, if you want to, you can share your information in the chat. And that'll be helpful. So you are welcome to do that and share your information in the chat. But it does sound like the two of you have some things to talk about, just from the smiles on your faces. So that'll be great, but make sure you do that. And so now what we'd like to do is hand over to Kate Ambrosia and have Kate fill us in on some of the different services and share the things that she's got with us today.
Okay, can you all see the PowerPoint?
We can. Yeah.
Okay, great. And what I'll also have is if Rachel wants to add anything to each slide, she'll go ahead and jump in, and then we'll make it through, and you guys can ask questions. You can also message in the chat box, so that way Don can kind of see it. But again, thank you all for bearing with us as we go through the VA. And so we are the Tennessee Valley Healthcare System. We actually cover 3 states, actually almost 4, because we get a lot of Alabama as well, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And so it's a pretty big area, and I'll go over a little bit more about that. So when you think about Department of Veteran Affairs, what is that? It's 3 pillars. One is the Veteran Benefit Administration. That's all about the benefits that a veteran can get. Veterans Health Administration, why it's circled, is that's what me and Rachel represent, and we'll talk more about, is the healthcare. And then it's the National Cemetery Administration. So you can kind of see there those three differences, and I'll be able to brief a little bit on some. So one of the first questions we often get is, what is disability? I know that some veterans get monthly checks and others don't. What does that mean? And so what a VA disability is a tax-free benefit paid to veterans for an injury or illness that was aggravated or incurred by military service. That includes both medical and mental health conditions. So it is a tricky process to even file for a disability. Rachel and I and pretty much all VA staff will really educate folks to say, don't feel like you have to fill that out yourself. Here are some local veteran service officers, they call them VSOs. They're located in every county nationwide. Often they're veterans, and they will actually act, I don't want to say attorney, but they will act as a free service to do all that paperwork for any veteran. So I want to make sure that we at least let you know about that. If there is a disability awarded, then that becomes what you call service connection. So compensation ratings start around 10%. They can go as high up as 100%. And there is additional compensation for dependents, so family members, when there's a rated 30% or higher. Again, that can be a very deep process, a lot to learn. And again, that's what that veteran service officer can assist with and walk a veteran through. And that is all done through the VBA. So sometimes there will be someone at the hospital that does this work, but I always like to let people know it's not typically the place you go to figure out benefits. Education is another huge benefit. The GI Bill, education and care, employment. So again, a lot of phone numbers listed here, but again, just keeping in mind that there is education benefits for the majority of veterans. Life insurance is a whole nother thing to consider and to look into. And so it takes, again, having a team. There's a lot of staff members that will answer these calls and walk any veteran through all their questions about that. Healthcare. So we'll jump in a little bit more on what the VA healthcare system is. So eligibility, it depends on a lot of different factors. It could be that you're service connected and that's already been determined with your disability ratings. It could be that you were a combat veteran that experienced a prisoner of war or Purple Heart award. It could be that you are eligible for Medicaid. There's an income threshold. It could be that you served in different eras, such as Vietnam, the Gulf War, or certain sites that might just be assumed connected, needing healthcare services. Not many cases where the family member and dependents are eligible for VA healthcare, but there is a window, and what it's called is CHAMP VA. That would probably be a whole nother presentation. And so I'll just make sure that you do know about it, and there is a way to call and find that out. Priority groups happen. There's about 8 of them, and it usually is based on income. So there's a way for you also to find out, well, and once you even decide that you are eligible and you want health services, then there's a breakdown of how much it might cost you. Will it be free? Will there be some co-pays? What will the billing look like? And again, that can be a call to have a professional staff member be able to walk you through that. Big thing I always want folks to know is that there's never a cost for care for anything related to military sexual trauma. That has been a big change in the VA in the last 15 years, just on how much we've grown in providing care. And so I highlighted a few sections here just to make sure you all get to see that. There is some time-sensitive benefits. One of the shortest ones is dental services. So again, just going to see a dentist doesn't always happen at the VA. The difference would be if you have a service-connected injury or something else, again, your doctor is the one to kind of determine that. Toxic exposure therapy, if you've heard the word Agent Orange, if you've heard the word Bernie pits, those are just different things that you might been exposed to when you served in the military, and could be additional benefits in healthcare for those conditions. Again, something to find more out about. Combat veteran, a big thing I always want folks to know is it's a 10-year post-separation, that if you know anyone that served in any kind of combat zone, you want to let them know, would you please go and sign up at the VA? Because once you're already in, you're kind of grandfathered in and you can stay enrolled. My own brother-in-law, I had to kind of work on him. He was an Iraq, Afghanistan veteran, and he got out and he got a good job and he thought, I'll just do Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I said, you're gonna come and sign up just one time, and it'll help with your hearing aids someday or whatever it is that you need. And so it's something that, again, with folks to let them know about. So the application process, there are 3 ways. You can apply in person. You can walk right into the VA and let someone know you're there to enroll, and they will guide you through where to go. You can apply online. I really like that feature. It's actually pretty quick and easy. And then there's within about 2 weeks follow-up on getting you an appointment, giving you a call, letting you know if you're eligible. And then you can always even just do it over the phone. And so those options, it's always up to whatever works best for the veteran. I'm going to tell you all how big Tennessee Valley is now. So unlike most VAs, we have 2 hospitals within about 20 miles of each other. That's very uncommon. Usually it's one hospital and it'll be hours and miles, especially when you go out west, before you can find another VA. So we have 2 medical centers. That's what the word we use for hospitals. One right next door to Vanderbilt, and then one in Murfreesboro. And then as far as clinics go, because for some of our veterans, that would be like a 2 or 3 hour drive. We have a lot of different health clinics. So you can see everything from Nashville all the way to Clarksville, and then Columbia, Cookville, Dover, Gallatin, and then these are just going to continue to grow. Hopkinsville up in Kentucky, Roane County, McMinnville, and even Tullahoma. And so we are really spread out. At most clinics, it'll have primary care and mental health care, and then maybe a couple others, specialty services. But maybe just for major surgeries and some other things might be more at the hospital setting, inpatient units. A big thing that the VA is moving through is changing its medical philosophy. For a while, as you all know, it was, what's your problem? What are your symptoms? Why are you here? And there's been some change in our health culture, thank goodness, to look at people as a person and not so illness centered. So that is what we call whole health in the VA. Really focusing more on your well-being and health, more wraparound care, and bringing in a lot more holistic treatment. As I'm sure you all know, it is a growing, field here in a Western society to bring in things from chiropractic care, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, acupuncture, biofeedback, heart math. The list goes on. So it's a wonderful thing that is now expanding at the VA to provide that care for veterans.
And Ms. Kate, I'd also like to add that with whole health and a host of other programs in the VA, at the VA healthcare, a lot of these things are online. Like I know some people that are doing yoga on, virtually or Tai Chi. I don't know if Tai Chi is or not, but mindfulness, virtually. Yes. So for some of the veterans who are homebound or don't really want to come back out right now, for whatever reason, I just like to, let them know that that is available to them as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
also like to tell them from a peer's perspective that we're at the table. The patient is at the table. You are part of your treatment team. And so I really, really like to drive that home, because it's been my experience, and maybe some other people, that, you go into the doctor, and the doctor is not to cite any clinicians, don't get me wrong, but being in uniform, sometimes if I'm enlisted and the other person is not, sometimes I just kind of am quiet about some things, if you will. But in this particular space, I like to encourage them, do your research and then ask questions. And by all means, know that your voice is important in your care. So, yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. And yes, the VA entire system really had a shift with COVID and a lot of transformation to virtual care. Yeah, good point to make there. So what is recovery? And so I don't have to spend too much time, being that you all work with NAMI, but the VA has really taken an approach to focus not just on health, because typically that's why you go to a hospital, is for a health condition, but also looking at what home life is. What is your life purpose? What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? Who is your community? What are your relationships like right now? And as Rachel mentioned, there's already such a challenge for veterans to move from military life to civilian life, that this is even more important to look at them as a whole person, to focus on their strengths, and kind of help them make that transition. And I'll be honest, it could be 2 years that they left the military and joined the VA. It could also be 40 years. It is very common for a lot of our Vietnam veterans to come in the door 50 years later. And so just thinking about how we can make the recovery model, an asset for how we take care of our veterans. Rachel did already such a good job on breaking down a lot of the different services. But wanting to let you know, what does the VA offer? What kind of health care can I get? Primary care. It's usually at least one primary care appointment a year to get your blood work done and your check-ins and refills, but you have the option to go more often. Mental health care in all different ways. Preventative care, care management, pharmacy. Women's health care has really grown. We're now doing a lot of expansion. We even throw a baby shower every year, and it's a drive-through, because if you're pregnant, you don't want to be getting out of the car and carrying everything. And so we're just able to just give tons of goodies and put it in the car for all of our female veterans preparing for motherhood.
And also, sorry,
Yes.
there were male veterans, but they were having a child with their partner. So even though they obviously weren't the pregnant person, they also participated in the drive-through. So just know that it was for all veterans. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Rachel. I was wondering about that.
Yes. Geriatrics and palliative care, we have that's really grown as well, and especially with the population of veterans at that age. So from the veteran state home, nursing home, community living centers, hospice, we have that. Our LGBTQ support program has really expanded. We had our first Pride event on VA property last week. So that was a big step forward. We're very lucky to have some strong leaderships to represent and expand in services. Our MST support, as I mentioned before, is incredibly expanded. We have a lot of support groups that really focus to provide some support and connection. Whole health, like I mentioned, all the holistic approaches. Care in the community, caregiver support programs, which I'll talk a little more because that's the family work. And then we also have chaplain services. And so just giving you that kind of heads up on some of what we do. Communication is key. I always let any veteran know, if you're going to join the VA, it can be overwhelming. We have 5,000 employees. I already showed you how many clinics we have. So it's really up to you to be your own advocate. My Healthy Vet is a way for you to communicate in a secure message to your provider or your treatment team. It goes directly into your chart. And then there's a timeline for all the providers to respond and address and figure it out. You get access to your medical records. You get to see all of your notes, refill your prescriptions, and as Rachel said, get to be an active member of your treatment team. And it's pretty user friendly for, surprisingly. I know a lot of things can be challenging, but it's made a difference in communication with your team. Additional services, again, this is why I'll send you the PowerPoint. So just knowing that a lot of our coordinators provide their phone number for any veterans to call with questions regarding the program. So military sexual trauma or LGBTQ or women's health, addiction treatment, homeless veterans all have a direct number to call. Typically, it is Monday through Friday during business hours. I'll go over some 24-hour care phone numbers, but I would say most of those are during the week.
Hey, Kate, is the Veterans Justice Outreach Program aligned at all with the Veterans Courts in different
Veteran
counties?
Treatment Court, yes, yep,
Okay.
and it's got several layers. So it can either be a staff member is assigned to review all currently incarcerated veterans, so that they can help once they leave to reestablish themselves in the community. Or it could be the opposite, when they are notified of starting in the legal system, being charged with anything, being able to represent, give support, guidance, mental health treatment. And that also is a big program that's expanding, and we have several peer supports in that program as well.
Cool.
So yes, you're right. And it does vary by county. Again, that's kind of how the state runs legal system. It can often just be by the county. Okay, so I'll jump into a little more on the family stuff. One of the first things especially in this kind of presentation, I like to let people know, it's very common for the family to want the veteran to go to the VA before the veteran wants to go to the VA. That would be myself getting my grandfather in. And so coaching into care is actually family support. So you could be a friend, you could be a neighbor, you could be a daughter, a wife, a sister, a partner. You can be anything. You know a veteran that you care about, and you're going, how do I get this veteran to get some care, to get benefits, anything. And so that's what this program is for, that the VA started. It's free. The other thing I really like about them is that they just do a quarterly newsletter, and the newsletter can give all kinds of information. Robin, you hit the nail on the head when you said what you were excited to hear about the VA, how now they can go into crisis. That was essential for family and friends to know about this with their veteran or their loved one. So even just joining that quarterly newsletter can be very educational if you do have some people in your life that are veterans. More about family. Our VA caregiver program, yes, continues to expand. There are two different programs. One is more general, and it'll offer everything from education and support, guidance, coaching, accessibility to new services. And then there's another one that is more of a comprehensive assistance that might provide actually some financial support, maybe one-on-one therapy for the caregiver. And so it's broken into two programs. And then so what they do is that you have the one number to call, and then the caregiver program will assess and assist in finding what program fits best for the caregiver.
I was going to say, Kate, both the PTSD site that the VA has and the caregiver site online, they're very good, great starting points if you just don't know where to go. But some very good tips there, and The information gets updated regularly. It's very good.
It is. Thank you for that feedback, Robin. That's, I'll let the directors know that for sure to keep plugging away. Because they're very much needed services, and I would say, you know, those are the questions I get asked quite a lot when I'm doing outreach events on those two programs. But keep in mind, a caregiver is anyone. It's ultimately determined by the veteran. So again, if it's a daughter, a partner, a sister, a spouse, that's determined by the veteran. And then again, the caregiver program will assist in establishing those services. There's also just a general support line, just for, you know, even if you're not part of one of those programs, if you just feel like you need to call and ask someone to talk to, you know, it may not even be in the Tennessee Valley area, but it would be someone to reach out to and then see if you can do some work getting the care that you need. I want to make sure you guys knew about that. And I think our program is very strong at Tennessee Valley, so I'm very happy to say that. The other program that's really been growing is the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program. And so that program used to just be one person. It's moved up to now 5, and just really expanding in how they can provide support and education. You know, even that, as we talked about, that transition from military to now civilian life, or just everything that the world is now facing, can cause a lot of stress at home, and it can have some kind of impact. And some folks will think, well, it's got to get really bad before I call and ask for help. It can just happen one time, you know, and again, what we know is, you know, abuse can be anything from verbal to emotional to physical. And if calling in for help early to develop those timeouts and those safety planning is going to really protect the relationship and give it some longevity. So we got some great program coordinators. They do all things, even like Strength at Home couples group, which is, you know, that group mentality of bringing relationships and partners together to talk and figure out better ways to communicate. The intimate, the IBBAP, as they call it, she gave such a good point the other day. She said that she actually worries more about couples that tell her they don't ever fight, and there's no fight, and everything is, you know, hokey dokey. And she said that it's more when couples let her know that they do fight, that she feels like she can then, you know, find, you know, healthy mechanisms for that. And I thought that was very interesting and accurate. So that would be, you know, who runs that group. So just again, seeing how the VA is expanding to helping families and not just focused on the veteran. Couples workshops. So this is something in my area. We just had one in Clarksville last Saturday. So it's for any veteran that is enrolled at Tennessee Valley that has a partner and would like to just do a retreat style all day Saturday event to work on their relationship. I had a couple once give a good analogy. It felt like an oil change of their relationship. They had been married 40 years and they were like, we're coming, we gotta work on a couple things. And then we'll have others that, you know, maybe you're still dating and still working things out to see where it goes. So that again, as the local recovery coordinator, is something I've been really pushing. We have them several times a year all over Tennessee Valley. As you saw, we're a big community. So our next stop is Murfreesboro. So letting you know about that. Again, more important numbers to know. The VA medical appointment line is one of the best phone numbers because they're quick, they answer, they get the appointment scheduled, because I know how it can feel like, who do I call, what do I do? So I've actually memorized that one. Patient advocate, as we mentioned, you got to be an advocate for yourself, but if you find you're running into, as Carolyn said, you know, some roadblocks, a patient advocate is a great person to call. They're staffed at the VA, often they're veterans themselves too, and that is then their role is to represent you and advocate for you. Prescription refill, again, you know, when you realize you didn't refill your meds and you gotta have it by tomorrow, it's a great phone number to call and get it working. Other cool thing about the VA is we mail all of our prescriptions to your home. And so it's just unique benefits that sometimes people I don't always realize that we do. Question for billing, that happens a lot. Put that number out. Wanted to make sure, as Robin shared, it has changed. So now any veteran, whether they're connected to the VA or not, can go to the emergency room. It is really recommended that you call this number within 72 hours, especially if you are a veteran already enrolled. So if you go to Tennessee Valley, you're on vacation with your family in Florida, you know, end up with, you know, a sinus infection or something going on, you go to the ER. In order to get Tennessee Valley to cover that cost, calling that number within 72 hours is kind of clutch. So I've been really making sure that I let people know about that.
So Kate, does it have to be 72 hours or within the 72 hours prior to your going in there?
Set within 72 hours after you went to the ER. So if I went to the ER on Friday night, I would have from Friday night within 72 hours of that visit at the ER
Okay.
to make sure the VA knows I was
Okay.
there, and that way they can connect the dots.
Okay, and so that's important for people to know. And it's after, it's not prior, it's after, within.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. It can't hurt to call before, and they'll probably say, thanks for letting us know. And, you know, after you check out, maybe give us a call again, you know, so hey, you want to call a few times, nothing wrong with that.
okay.
Our crisis line, I'm sure, as again, you all know, has changed to 988, and that's for anyone. And then if you are a veteran, you can press 1 if you would like to. But again, the fact that we've now changed it to a very quick number that we can all remember and utilize was like Christmas morning for me when I found that out. So I'm very glad that we're able to do that. And you can text, there's the online chat. And then if you are traveling, there is a way to find VA emergency departments. So that way, if you are just going, well, I don't know about going to this ER, I don't know anything about them, I wonder if there's a VA close to me in Florida that I can go to their ER. That's always an option. And again, if you're already enrolled, you have access to do that. Don't want to leave out the vet center. That's where I started as a therapist, but something I always want people to know about a vet center. They are kind of like the stepchild of the healthcare system of the VA. They work with active duty, so you could still be in the service and go see a vet center counselor. You could have not gotten what we call a honorable discharge. You might have been, well, what a lot of folks will say, kicked out of the Army or dishonorable, or that does not matter to eligibility at the vet center, as long as you have a DD 214 that can show that you served, you have access to care. What they call, instead of therapists, is readjustment counselors, and that's that concept. They do a lot of recovery work. And so just making sure you guys can even know that if the VA as a whole maybe isn't an option for somebody, yourself or someone you know, vet centers might be a great spot to look.
And
It's an
Kate,
easy-
I think for older veterans that may have been in the system a while, if they've kind of gotten jaded on the system or something, this is a great alternative.
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah. Now, if you do have a dishonorable or other than honorable discharge, that is also something that veteran service officer, the one I mentioned about the benefits, can actually help you apply the retro act and change that. And I've been able to see that happen a lot too.
That's great.
Yes. Makes it a very big deal, and opens the door for services and reduces that shame and that rejection.
Let me interrupt and say thank you, because I just had a veteran said that I can't get help because I have a dishonorable discharge.
Mhm.
And you know what? I gave him a few numbers at Murfreesboro. So after we get off, I screenshotted those numbers.
Oh, good, 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 excellent.
I want to give those numbers to this fella.
Yes,
So maybe we can lead him down there. But thank you for verifying that. I didn't
Yes.
lie to him. Thank you.
yes, no, and again, 8 years in, I learned something new all the time. But once I learned that it's not a guarantee, but that there is someone that can help apply and work to get that discharge changed. Yes. Mhm.
Kate, how long has that been going on?
I couldn't give you a number of years. It could also just be when I found out about it versus when it started.
Okay, it's just
Mhm.
good to know. It's news to me
Mhm.
too.
Yeah. It's a game changer.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, I had actually heard about it a couple of years ago when I worked in with a couple of my militaries down here. But I kind of, like I said, I've lost all of my hands-on down here. So
Yes.
I need some updates.
Yes. And again, I know I'm going to provide all these numbers for you, but there is a chance numbers can change, as we know, updates. So, I'm glad Robin shared that hopefully the websites, even if, you look back at this PowerPoint in a couple years and that number doesn't work for you, then hopefully, it's continued updating on the website for you to use Google and find it. Or, again, takes a network and reach out to a friend to track it down. I don't have to share too much on peer support services since Rachel did such a good job sharing. But again, wanted you to know that, again, these are veterans that have experienced similar life challenges. And they're there to be adjunctive care. So it's not always that they just only speak with a peer support. It's that they're getting any kind of services that they want. And the peer support, as Rachel mentioned, kind of guides along that journey and is there so they don't feel forgotten. And so it's a range of services that they provide, everything from groups, like the RAP group, to doing outreach, to doing coffee socials, to doing presentations. The list just really goes on based on their own skills, their passion. And then luckily at the VA, we have so many programs that they can kind of fit and find their best fit. It's growing by the month. I can say it is like spreading like wildfire in a good way, of how many supervisors are going, I want one. How do I get one? We gotta expand here and put it on USA Jobs. So I have even worked with a few peers outside of the VA that have said they've wanted to come work. But as Rachel said, it does have to be, you have to be a veteran to be in that role. Maybe that changes at some point, I'm not sure. But I value anyone that wants to be a peer support, absolutely. Let's see. I think that's it. I think the only thing I did forget to mention that I know I highlighted it, but volunteers. We would love to have more volunteers at the VA. It's a great way if you want to do some work with us, especially if you're not a veteran or you're not a caregiver, but you're like got that heart and soul for the military community. We are always expanding our volunteer program, and that number is in the slideshow as well.
Do you have a volunteer through this VA now down here?
I missed that, Carolyn. What'd you say?
I'm sorry, my voice is wanting to come and go on me now. Forgive me. Do you have that volunteer service down here at the Klugsville Clinic? So we could go through that. I like to meet them on the street. And, that's what I'm doing right now.
I'm not sure if we have that program at there or not. I think that would be a great question. So maybe we can follow up with you, Carolyn, to find out more on that.
Maybe we can get it started down here.
You never know.
Hey, ain't no reason we can't at least try, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
it's hard for me to travel sometimes.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of take a step back because I'm actually in a couple of different things. I'm in the NAMI, I'm in the bullying. I like to help the cons, I like to help the military. So I kind of, break up my time to be
Yeah.
involved
Yeah.
in work.
We all appreciate it, Carolyn.
Thank you. I appreciate all of y'all.
All right. Well, Kate, this is and Rachel, this is just fantastic. Let's go ahead and bring the presentation down, and then we'll ask if anybody has questions when we can all see each other. And if you'll just hit stop share on the bottom.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, no, that was great, ladies. That's a lot of information. As you said, but it's so nice to know all of that is out there. And we want to encourage our veterans and our family members to reach out for this information. And those interested in being peers. We're a peer-to-peer organization, so we just love that. And there's power in when you can say I understand, and you really do. It's meaningful. It is absolutely meaningful. So we thank you for that. So Mary, Carolyn, or Ann, did you have any other questions for either Kate or Rachel?
Not at this moment.
All right.
I'd like to,
I have the
Go ahead,
number
Ann.
of Murfreesboro, so
Well, we got you
always
down in
follow.
the chat there, yeah.
I guess I want to express a dream, and maybe you can tell me if there's a solution that fits it. I help out with my 71-year-old brother who's a veteran, and he has now full disability, but I've had trouble keeping his bills paid until I finally got full control of his Social Security and his VA benefits. He actually was in the HUD-VASH program until his VA benefit went up, and then he lost his counselor, which was a big loss. He would have been better off staying in HUD-VASH
Okay, the
So-
income.
because all that extra income he was just blowing while I was paying his bills with his Social Security. That money would just disappear. People would take it from him. He was very vulnerable. But anyway, long story short, what I would like to see is a peer that could come beside him and build trust, because he doesn't trust the medical system. He used to go to the VA more often, but he doesn't really trust the VA now. He's used the local clinic in Gallatin some, but he doesn't like women. First of all, he doesn't trust women. He likes women, but he doesn't trust us, especially his little sister.
That's so common.
Yeah, and I would love to have someone that could build trust with him and just talk sense to him.
Okay. What I would say, Anne, especially because we're being recorded, if you don't mind, if you'd like to put your information in the chat, I don't mind following up with you. That way I can maybe learn a little bit more about him. I don't want to ask you any of those questions quite yet. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
And thank you for the question, Ann, because and if others may hear it, I appreciate Kate's deference there very much, but it's nice for others to hear. One of the things that we do find as people age, or as people go more into what we around here call stuff, and they do tend to shy away from families. They do, that it's very hard on family members, but it's a very natural thing to have occur. And we never want family members to think they're at fault in any way. It is just kind of the progression of some of these issues. And it does make it hard in both the sense of trying to get things done, but also it hurts your heart. And that's when we're going to encourage you to get with other caregivers in the program or join a NAMI support group. But I think for you with the VA support, the caregiver support, again, that's your peer. So that's just really powerful.
Thank you for that, Robin. Yeah, I would say that that national caregiver number would absolutely be appropriate for you to reach out to anytime. And then given that it is Tennessee Valley, I don't mind talking to you a little more and seeing if I can come up with some ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Something I often encourage with any support group for anything is that when you're in touch with people who are going down the same path and sometimes maybe just a little bit ahead of you, they may have little tidbits to offer just out of their own experience that it may not be a big thing or may not seem like a big thing, but it can make a difference. So I really do encourage anybody that sees this going forward to not hesitate to join a support group. Yes, it is scary for the first time to bring, your business, as we all say, to complete strangers, but those strangers can become some of the best allies.
Mhm. Yeah.
May I add to what you just said, please? I am in a narcissistic support group, and I find myself encouraging the others that with our story is somebody else's survival road.
Right?
It's an easier
it-
life, road.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Thank you for doing that, Carolyn. And Mary, you've been kind of quiet tonight, but I know you're out there supporting and appreciate you doing it.
That's good. You muted.
Yeah, I was going to mention to Carolyn. So I do volunteer at the Minneapolis VA hospital Thursday mornings. And we had a gentleman come in and he says, "Y'all are here volunteering." Yeah. "You've got a coffee cart." And somebody's, there's two volunteers next to it. Yeah. "They won't let us do that where we are." "How do I prove this?" He took a picture of the coffee cart with this big, a Center for Development and Civic Engagement and all that stuff on the front of it with the volunteers who volunteered to be in the picture. So he could prove that other places have volunteers. He'd like to volunteer where he is at.
You may have started something just by being there, Mary.
I'm like, why will they not let people volunteer?
I appreciate you volunteering, Mary, and you have a good sense of humor about it. You need to have that. Mhm.
I'm like, oh, take a picture. Oh man.
Well, ladies, unless we have any other questions, we are getting towards the end of our time. I would like Don to share what NAMI Davidson has coming up next week for people in the local area, and we're open to everybody. We do really appreciate having any veterans things because we consider veterans a culture of strength, and we know that they are going to seek out other veterans as much as they are always welcome to be with us for anything that we do. We know that that's a place that is really special to them and is made for them. But just know that they're always welcome. So Don, if you could share what we've got coming up next
Can I say
week, that would
something
be
real quick
great.
before
Sure.
I forget?
What's
Go
that,
ahead.
Mary?
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
The NAMI Homefront.
Thank
NAMI
you, Mary.
Homefront. So I did the NAMI Homefront class.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the NAMI Homefront. And if you take the class and then you want to be a NAMI Homefront producer, which is basically help teach the class, that's available as well. You just have to seek out the class on NAMI.org and then ask about getting to the next level.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mary.
I thought about that and I forgot, so I'm so glad that you brought it up. But there is some pilot programs going on right now at certain VAs, bringing NAMI Homefront and the VA together. It's not happening in Tennessee Valley. I would be fully disclosure if it was. But my hope is that the pilot program will continue to grow and we'll be working even more closer together. So thank you, Mary, for bringing that up. It's a good program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And I want to thank Kate and Rachel for taking their time tonight to present to our members and the public, as this will be loaded. The audio will be loaded to our YouTube channel. Again, I appreciate you both. Rachel, I will say we are peers. We discussed before everyone else came in that we took our bridges class. We were trained in bridges together a couple years ago, where I do the support groups here for NAMI, and I'm sure Rachel does some support groups with the VA. But again, appreciate you both. NAMI Davidson in the next week, as Robin said, we will be closed Tuesday for July 4th. Our weekday helpline will run Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week, but Tuesday we will be closed. We are taking a break this week because it's the 5th week of a month, but next week we'll bring back our mixed support group, which meets on the 1st and 2nd Wednesday of every month virtually from 6:30 to 8. That is for caregivers and people with lived experience. A week from tomorrow, on Thursday the 6th, we will have our Friends Supporting Friends group, which is our peer social engagement hour, which meets on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th Thursday of every month for an hour from 6:30 to 7:30. We're actually in the process of planning our next in-person outing in July. So peers, people with lived experience are more than welcome to join us. And next Saturday, well, the following Saturday, the 8th, July 8th, Robin will be facilitating our monthly Family and Friends Mental Health Caregiver Primer, which is a 90-minute condensed version of our 8-week Family to Family class, which our Family to Family class for caregivers of people with lived experience starts in person August 29th at a local venue in Nashville. But everyone on the call tonight is, except I believe Rachel isn't, but hopefully soon will be, is on the email list. So all of those things that I mentioned tonight will be in my Monday emails. I send out on Monday something NAMI Davidson related, and the programs that week and upcoming programs like this education session. And on Wednesdays, I'll send something that includes more community and online opportunities for in the mental health field. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Don. Appreciate that. And with that, we will end our evening.